Welcome back to another episode of the Frisky Risky podcast. Sports news, fantasy, gambling, everything you need going into the NFL weekend. We are getting close here, guys. We had our first preseason game.
Mm,
It was a bit of a rain out,
yeah, it's a
but
bummer.
uh, yeah, it was. Bears took it.
I know it's a bummer because I took the under. I was looking at a bunch of the games from the previous years, and they all went over, and I was like, "We're due for an under." And then they got smoked in like the second quarter or something, and I was like, "God damn it!" And then of course the Bears took the lead, and I was like, all right, we could go 1 for 2 on the night, break even." And then they voided my bet because they obviously did not finish the game, and I was like, "Can't win today." That's why you don't bet on the Hall of Fame game, people. You heard it here first. Do not bet on the Hall of Fame game.
Hey, hey, at least it's a void. It's not a loss, right?
True.
I mean,
True.
at the end of the day, we're going to look at the positives. And that's not going to matter because you're going to give us some great bets, some winning bets at the end of this episode.
Hmm.
But before that, we have a lot to get into. Um, we are in the midst of camp right before games this weekend. We got some big preseason games coming up and a lot to talk about. So, Willie P, let's start with some injuries, man. Rams camp, they are getting murked out there, dude. They got two cornerbacks out, one with a hamstring and one out for the season with an ACL. They got three, I believe. I think it's three of their starting linemen
3 out of 5.
are
Yep.
out. Yeah, one with a contusion to his scapula. He won't play the entire preseason. And then two of them with ankle injuries that now got downgraded from day to day to week.
Hmm.
And then Puka has a knee injury, which you know saw a lot of people saying it might be a PCL sprain. So there is a lot going on over there.
Yeah, Rams are getting the injury bug early, which is not good because they've kind of been dealing with that kind of low key for the past like 2 years with Matt Stafford and Cooper Cup. Ever since Cooper Cup won the Triple Crown, he just hasn't been able to play a full season. So I pray to God that he can this year because everybody loves seeing Cooper Cup on the field, and I really would like to get him on my fantasy team because I think he's due for a nice bounce back year if he can stay healthy. But yeah, it's I don't know what it is in the water in LA, but they don't like to stay healthy there right now, and it's a bummer to see another young stud running or wide receiver in Puka Nakua go down because that's not what you want to see preseason. So everything I saw, at least initially, was it wasn't as bad as they thought, but now, as you said, they're saying it might be a PCL, and you never want to hear those three-letter acronyms of tendons in your knee be brought up because it's not an easy thing to come back from, even if you only strain it or something minor.
Ligaments, dude, ligaments.
Ligaments, the bane of the athlete's
um,
existence.
we So I took a look. I don't know if you guys go on to predictors.com, I wrote an article. You'll see it there. I took a look at the year that uh, the Rams went. I believe it was 5-12 2 years ago, right after their Super Bowl winning season. That season, they had one of the lowest banged up scores of all 32 teams um, in that season. I think they were bottom five. I think they might have been bottom two. And last season, when they actually did pretty well, came out I think second in their division, was wild card. They lost to Lions in the wild card. Uh, they had one of the highest. So this starting the season off with a this many injuries is not a good look for the Rams based on their history. It's not what you want
Mm-mm.
if you are a Rams fan, even if they are quote unquote not season ending for the most part outside of Darian Kendrick.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not good. Not good. They add up after a while. So something we'll definitely keep a watch on. Um, DeAndre Hopkins, dude, another big injury. I don't know if you saw the video where he tried to play through it. He was taped up, old school looking tape job, dude. I was pretty proud of that. It's like some crap I learned when I was in school. Actually, it
Oh
was
yeah.
before my time. Um, but judging by the tape job, it looks like it was an LCL probably.
Yeah.
Judging by the tape that they used. They're saying 4 to 6 weeks. I would agree with that timeline. But yeah, not what you want in your stud receiver.
I know, and at least they, got Calvin Ridley in the offseason. That's going to be huge. At least, granted that he's probably going to obviously miss all of preseason and maybe the first 2 weeks of the NFL regular season. So at least they have a guy to kind of stop some of the water from flowing through. And but yeah, not what you want to see. And of course, injuries are always a part of the preseason. We talked about it a lot last week. It's just kind of the inevitable monkey on the back, so to speak. And it kind of just gets different teams every year. And I'm not saying I'm not surprised, but DeAndre Hopkins has been in the league for a long time. He's kind of getting up there. Of course, you never want to see anybody get hurt, but you know, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, and they also have Traylon Burks, who didn't he have a not season-ending injury last year, but he had some injury trouble last year, at least to start the year, if I recall. And so hopefully those two guys can stay healthy, and we'll see. Hopefully, I believe in Will Levis this year. He's every quarterback ranking I've seen, he's been in the bottom three, but something about that dude, man, he's got an aura to him, and he's got a hell of a right arm. So hopefully, the Titans can maybe get something going, and maybe Calvin Ridley is the guy they needed. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the Titans season. I think we're gonna have, I think, some growing pains there, but it'll be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, well,
Um,
they were the bottom three in total defense last year, and they've made some significant moves to fix that this year. Getting Quandre Diggs the other day, and as well as Jamal Adams and L'Jarius Sneed. So I think the Titans could surprise a couple people this year for sure. Will they win their division? Probably not, but I bet they'll have some pretty notable wins this year that people will not be expecting for sure.
yeah, well, they're in a tough division, so it's going to be this year. This year, normally I would say not so much, but this year I think it's going to be a tough division. So uh, they're going to have to step it up.
Hmm.
Uh, Detroit, Emmanuel Mosley, pec
Hmm.
tear. Usually pec tear, we're looking at 3 to 4 ish months coming back from that. If you remember, CJ Gardner Johnson last year had a pec tear on week 2, ended up coming back right at the end, really late end of the season. So Mosley has a chance to return. This is just brutal for this guy, though. I mean, ACLs, you know, and now this. I mean, he just has injury after injury after injury. And they're not like little chronic things. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? They're not things that that you almost say, "Oh man, this guy like, it's an ankle. He twisted his ankle again," or something like that. I mean, these are like hardcore,
Yeah,
you know, ACL season-ending injury, then pec tear. I mean, I don't. That's crazy.
yeah,
That's tough.
yeah. I mean, yeah, he tore his ACL in 22 and 23. And when I was researching it yesterday, he did it a day apart, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. And it's just like, man, dude, like, hate to say, like, you got to call it when you got to call it, but it's just, the cards are not falling your way. And it's terrible to see. And it's the same thing with like Tim Patrick with the Broncos. He's finally back healthy this year. He's so far made it through training camp. I just knocked on wood because you never know with him. Of course, now I'm gonna get a report today at noon from Schefter that he's tore something else again because I just jinxed him, and he's gonna come find the pot and call me out for it, which is totally legit. Same thing with like J.K. Dobbins. It just sucks because there's some of these dudes that just get can't get it right in terms of not getting health or in terms of getting healthy and not getting injured. So yeah, man, it's a bummer to see. We'll see. Obviously, the Lions too are trying to get back to where they were last year and even further. So this isn't a good start. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, not what the Lions want. They have a good shot this year, I think, at making a nice run in the playoffs if everything goes according to plan, quite like last year. So this is definitely a hard hit for them,
Yep.
absolutely. And then, dude, Christian McCaffrey, calf strain. This was big news yesterday.
Mm.
Um, I'm a little worried just because of his hamstring issues in the past and how he comes back from soft tissue stuff. I do think it's a bit of a different situation. Back then he was on the Panthers and they just used him like a rented mule. Now, the 49ers, they spread the ball out more. I mean, he's still obviously the biggest part of that offense, but um, they can work on some other stuff. They know he's going to be ready for the season. They know he's done it enough. That if he misses the preseason, it's fine. But still, worrisome, especially for fantasy fans, right?
Hmm.
He's pretty much the overall number one off most boards.
Hmm.
And so now that puts a little bit of a question mark next to it. Is it worth taking him number one overall, or is this going to be a Joe Burrow situation from last year with his calf, where you know all of a sudden he didn't play so well?
Yeah, no, totally. Well, and yeah, like you said before, I mean, he's not been the best with soft tissue stuff, and I said it to you yesterday. Is it the Madden cover curse? Everyone loves to bring that up. I know. I don't know if you're superstitious. I try not to be, but then these things happen, especially when he's the clear cut number one overall pick for fantasy. And now I'm like, oh man, it might be real. So if I was ever in the NFL or a professional athlete or was an agent to a professional athlete, and we, he had a great year, career year, and EA Sports called and said, hey, you want to get on the cover? I would immediately hang up and say, no, we're good. We'd rather have a longevitous career and continue to make a lot of money instead of being on a video game cover. And that's hyperbole, but you get what I'm trying to say. I mean, it's a bummer. We'll see. I mean, this point, I mean, thankfully don't have the first overall pick in the leagues that have already done draft order. I've been kind of in sticking into the middle of the pack. Luckily, the luck has been on my side this year. I'd normally prefer to pick middle of the pack, so I don't have to be worrying about Christian McCaffrey. But if he falls to pick six, pick seven, I'll scoop him up right away and stash him on my bench if I have to for half the year. I mean, that'd be great. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's a bummer.
I don't think he's fallen that far,
He
but
shouldn't.
maybe.
And if he does, I will, call the mental ward on my fantasy league and be like, these guys don't know what's going on. So, yeah. But you never know. You never know. People get scared. The media loves to talk. We'll see. But yeah, everything I've seen from all the big name guys, they're, it's nothing too crazy, it seems like, but definitely raises eyebrows for sure. And definitely something to keep an eye
Absolutely. Well, those are the big injuries going on right now. If you want any more injury information, definitely make sure to check in on the predictors.com. We have our impact injuries always for a nice, easy shot right at the top. And then you can read about most of them in some of our articles there. But Willie P, season starting, preseason starting specifically this, well, already started, but really
on.
this weekend. But as we get towards this and the actual season, man, what are you excited to watch? What's on your mind? What are some storylines you've been keeping track of that you're excited to watch this season?
I didn't think I'd be saying that the New York Giants are someone I'm excited to watch, but after Malik Neighbors started throwing hands at practice yesterday, I'm pretty fired up to see what these guys are going to do. Especially with Daniel Jones coming back. That dude gets paid way too much money. I think most people listening to this or will see anything about us will agree with that. Jalen Hyatt's been a stud at Tennessee. He kind of had an underwhelming year last year, obviously due to Daniel Jones getting hurt, and them going through with Tommy DeVito and the numerous quarterbacks that they had to deal with, along with a lot of other franchises in the NFL last year. But I think the Giants are kind of fired up. It seems like, at least Malik Neighbors has a lot to prove, obviously, and I think yesterday him throwing hands is honestly a good sign for me because he wants it. And I feel like a lot of the time you see these big name wide receivers that come off out of the draft early and have a lot of expectations. Not saying they all do this, but it seems like some of them kind of just take the money and run. Where Malik Neighbors seems pretty fired up to be there, and wants to actually turn that franchise around finally. So, and if him and Jalen Hyatt can get something going, man, I mean, I have no problem seeing the Giants at least improve greatly from last year. Then again, that all is dependent on the guy under center and Daniel Jones, and he's got to live up to a big $40 million a year contract, and especially coming off an injury from last year. But yeah, I mean, I never would have thought I'd say it, but the New York Giants are kind of getting me fired up to see what they're going to do this year for sure.
Well, I I saw that Hyatt's been making some great strides in camp. Everything I've seen come out of that organization says that Jalen Hyatt has been crushing it. So,
Mhm.
with his explosiveness, I would agree. I think that's going to be very exciting to watch. And so that, I mean, that division itself is going to be tough to get through.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think the Giants, they got they got something ahead of them that they're gonna have to get through, and it's not gonna be easy, but they got an offense to do it, I think, for sure.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
mean,
I
granted they
agree.
don't have old Saquon anymore, and they're gonna have to see him twice a year, which is gonna be man. I'm so curious to see when I don't know when they play. I should look, but like Saquon's first game back in the Meadowlands, I'm just so curious to see what his lines are going to be because I feel like people are just going to hammer the shit out of him. And depending on when they play in the season, if it's later in the season, I'd maybe take them. And again, this is all speculation because we don't even know what they are. But if it's like a week 3, week 2, something like that, week 4, and it's in the Meadowlands early, I would maybe, depending on what they are, take Saquon's unders just because I feel like the public is just going to go crazy on him, which makes sense. But I could see the Giants just, that's their Super Bowl. They want to shut down this dude for burning them so hard, even though they never did him right in any way. But yeah, man.
I think October 20th, Eagles at Giants.
Okay, there you go. So that's probably like week 6, 7, maybe week 5. Because when the season starts, September 5th.
No, it's gonna be like week 9 or 10, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Obviously, I can't do mental math very quickly, so that's why we talk sports instead. Um, well, I know that I know
Uh,
you brought this
yeah,
up,
we
but
got week 7, week 7. We're
okay,
kinda both I was a little far, you were a
all
little
right,
early.
all
We'll
right.
meet in
I
the
was like,
middle.
man, that's
We'll meet
already
in the
like
middle.
a
We'll
week
call week
behind. I
7.
was like, holy cow, where did all the time go? Because I was just based it off September to February. That's kind of my benchmark. That's why I was like, whoa, how am I? But anyway,
I think
I
I
know
was
that you're
counting preseason games. I think I was counting preseason games is why I got up to time at 10.
Getting back to it though, I mean, I know that you're fired up about Christian Gonzalez coming back and everything that I've seen out of
Oh,
Patriots
yeah,
camp.
man.
He seems locked in. He's just I always love that when dudes are locked in, but they're also just very grateful to be there. And not saying, and most dudes in the NFL are, but everything that I saw from him, he's like, I'm just happy to be back. I'm ready to get it going again. And so I can only imagine. I mean, we both played sports, and I only played at the high school level. But even when I missed a high school game, like sitting on the sideline, not being able to play, that was the worst thing in the world. And I get it. So I'm just stoked to see him back. I mean, obviously, your 2023 first round pick. I mean, that dude should be a stud. So I the Patriots already have a solid defense they have for a while, and he's only going to make it even better. So hopefully, I hope he comes back full stride and just make some plays early for sure.
Yeah, well, he's coming back from a labrum tear, which for a corner is not a terrible injury to return from, right? I mean, obviously, knocking down passes, interceptions, things like that, but it's not like coming back from, a lower extremity
Hmm.
injury, especially what you have to do at corner, quick change of direction,
Hmm.
things like that. So I think he'll be back at his normal self. I mean, if you remember last year, crushed it. I mean, he was absolutely brilliant there, in those games that he played before he had to leave because of that injury. So Stephon Gilmore came out and said how much he sees Christian Gonzalez like
Hmm.
in himself, which are high praise words from a great quarterback.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to watch the Patriots defense. I'm worried to watch the Patriots offense. So as a Patriots fan, we're, we're kind of in the same boat as we were last year. From a, feel pretty strong about the defense, not so much about the offense. But hey, we got Mayo back there, um, you know, uh, behind or in the headset. So hopefully it'll be a little bit different outcome this year. We'll do better than 4-12 or whatever we went last year, and we will. We'll have a good season here. At least I'm not expecting anything crazy, but I'm expecting, to be decent this year.
I
We
feel
should be
like
over 500.
I feel like as a Patriots fan, and this is me on the outside looking in, because I have never won 7 Super Bowls in my life, or excuse me, 6. I always think that Tom Brady won the seventh in New England, but then I'm like, oh yeah, he went to Tampa Bay his first year and just did what he does. But anyway, as a Patriots fan, outside looking in, I would honestly have low expectations and totally be okay with it. You have a brand new rookie quarterback, brand new coach, bringing in a new scheme, bringing in his own thing. I at least like I get that you guys want to win and that's what you guys do and that's your culture. But if I'm Kraft and that ownership and the front office, I'm like, all right, let's just take it step by step. Let's try and build a good foundation. I get that everybody wants to win right away, but I feel like at some point you got to be realistic. And that was like me last year with the Broncos and with Sean Payton, and this whole thing with Russell Wilson. I was like, we got to do it now, and it's like, well, that's not going to happen. And look where we are now. So,
Well, I think it's become it's such a business, right? That if you don't win within 2, 3 years, you have every fan calling for the coach's head, right?
100%.
And that's the problem now. It's they don't have time to build, right? It's you have a year to build, and then, your second year you should be in the playoffs, and your third year you should be a contender. Like that's how everyone thinks about it at this point. And if you're not, it's a bust.
Well, and we were
That coaching hire.
Yeah, and we were talking about this right before. I was on ESPN and they released some little article about how Sirianni and Jalen Hurts fractured each other's trust last year, and I was like, I don't know, we'll see, kind of depending on how they do. You know, Sirianni's already kind of on the hot seat. It seems like a little bit, and like you said, they've given him every opportunity to succeed. He has every weapon he needs. Now they have another one in Saquon Barkley, so it's not like you can blame the running game. And regardless of how the Eagles do this year, unless they win a Super Bowl or at least get back to it, I have a hard time believing that Eagles front office is going to be keen to keep him around for at least an extended amount of time. So,
Which is crazy because they've had success, and
yeah.
now it's, if it's, oh man, you have to make it, into the playoffs. Not even just make the playoffs. You got to make it into the playoffs. And they've given him tools. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's got, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown. Now he's got Saquon. I mean, he's got the guys, and
Hmm.
he's got a good defense. But it's a competitive market, man. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So, but as we move into this preseason, we will get to see all of that. But there's still some guys that are up in the air of where we're going to see them, and one of those is Brandon Ayuk. Um, at first, he's obviously been calling for a trade for a while. Then it sounded like the 49ers were like, no, we're not going to trade him. We're going to keep him. We're going to figure this out. And now it's come out that, hey, actually, we are open to trading him, instead of giving him a deal. The Patriots dropped out after it initially asking what that price would look like, maybe trading over Kendrick Bourne and, some picks later on, whatever it would be, but it sounds like they've dropped out. I know the Browns were interested.
Hmm.
Um, what's your thoughts on it, Willie P? What do you think is going to happen?
I think they, I think they need to pack up the bags and send him on his way out of town.
Yeah,
Brandon Ayuk's a phenomenal wide receiver. It's nothing about his talent. I just think if I'm Kyle Shanahan, if I'm John Lynch, and I want to keep doing what you've been doing, which has been successful. Granted, you haven't won a Super Bowl yet, but you have been very close multiple times, especially with a young quarterback in Brock Purdy, who still has a rookie deal under his belt. And in 2 3 years, you were going to have to pay that man a lot of money. Get rid of Brandon Ayuk. The money that he wants is very justified, but in terms of long term success and longevity as a franchise, you can't afford to pay that man that kind of money, and expect to do well in the near future. They're going to have to put that around either Purdy or their offensive line or their defense. They could just put that money so many other places. And we talked about it last week, even with Christian McCaffrey getting a little banged up to start the season, they still have so many weapons out that on that offense, and Purdy has proven that he can do it. Granted, we'll see if he's not around this year in terms of Ayuk. We'll see he's going to have a little bit more of a challenge, but again, you still have George Kittle, you still have Debo Samuel. I mean, I just
dude,
my,
Purdy. Don't worry about Purdy, dude. He'll just run it on his own. You seen that
yeah,
guy's freaking
dude,
workout plan? He's huge
dude,
now.
yeah, dude. And I mean, again, it's just like I don't know why the Niners, especially John Lynch, wouldn't want to just ship him out and get as much capital as he could. Just because, why not? I mean, again, like you said, it's a business. It's win now. Well, you're already winning. So, granted, again, you haven't gotten over the ultimate hump of winning a Super Bowl, but you're doing what you need to be doing. Let's keep that going as long as possible because sooner or later, Brock Purdy's not going to be there, Debo's not going to be there. All these pieces that have made you what you are not going to be there. Fred Warner, whatever. Dre Greenlaw obviously got hurt in the Super Bowl last year. That's a very light foreshadowing of what could happen in the near future. I would get rid of him quick. I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns got him. And if you do get him from the Browns and you go get Amari Cooper, let's do it. I mean, something like that.
So
Maybe,
do you think Browns or Steel I know the Steelers are in it too, and they've been talking
yeah,
maybe they would trade Pickens over. If you're the
that's.
49ers, would you rather have Pickens or Amari Cooper?
I'd rather have Amari Cooper. I think. I know he's much older. I'd like George Pickens. He has a crazy catch radius, but I feel like there's this whole thing around George Pickens where he has two big games a year where he goes for over 100, has a long touchdown reception, makes the highlight play on Sports Center. Then the rest of the year he's just kind of teetering on a plateau of nothing crazy. I had him in fantasy last year and he was not anything to write home about except for that one
I th
he went crazy.
I I like the youth in Pickens, but I would agree that if you get Cooper, he may be a better fit for the 49ers only because they're at a place where they have so many stars that you need someone almost who is reliable, but at almost at the tail end of their career where he's okay with not being the Christian McCaffrey of the team. You know what I mean? Like he's going to
Mm-hmm.
go out there, he's going to do his job. You can rely on him. He's going to run his routes well. You get him 5, 6 balls a game.
Mm-hmm.
He's happy. He doesn't have to have, 10 receptions for 140 yards. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
he's just going to do his thing. That might be the best play for them.
No, 100%.
Plus some
And
picks and stuff later.
yeah, and I don't know how much money he's going to ask, but I'm almost certain that if he did come into that organization, I'm sure John Lynch would be like, "Hey, man, we'll pay you this much. We get who you are, and that you're a name brand." But I have a hard time believing he'd be a tough sell in that negotiation process to be like, "Oh, I need to get X amount." I feel like he would realize like, "Oh, I have a legitimate chance finally." Since the Cowboys to win it, go at least be in a Super Bowl and get close to one, and I feel like he would be a reasonable enough guy to you know take a pay cut in terms of what he could be valued at. And yeah, I mean, and I think also if Brandon Ayuk went to the Steelers to on the flip side, I mean, I think he'd be great for Russell Wilson, and we'll see how long Russell makes it. I'm really worried about Russell Wilson this year because I feel like he's going to do pretty well, and I hate that just because it's going to make the Broncos look even
Tomlin
worse.
Tomlin came out and said there is a QB battle.
I, that's crazy to me. I only say that's crazy because I feel like I'd want to just see what I got in Russell Wilson, mainly just because you're paying him a little over $1 million this year. You're not losing anything by playing him. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I get it. I mean, you got Justin Fields for a reason. I'm assuming they want him to be the quarterback of the future. Why not get him going now? Get it early. And at the end of the day, Mike Tomlin's got a long winning season record he's been holding on to, and I'm sure he doesn't want to let that go anytime soon. So at the end of the day, he'll make that decision. But I mean, if Ayuk goes and plays for the Steelers, that'd be cool as well. I mean, we'll see. Now that they don't have Deontay Johnson, I mean, Ayuk could easily be, their wide receiver one and should be. But at the same time, too, looking at Ayuk in a new spot, if he goes and becomes a wide receiver one, he's getting double a lot. Let's see how good he really is. I mean, he's always been the second, third option on his team. And I'm not saying that's why he's making crazy catch after crazy catch, but it definitely helps when you're not having the best dude line up across from you.
Yeah, no, 100%. So he's asking for big money, but we'll see if he gets it. We'll see if he deserves it too once the season starts here.
Yeah.
Truly, if he deserves it. Um, well, let's talk a little opinion. Uh, Starting players in the preseason, yes or no? So there's been a lot of talk lately about which teams, like the Texans, who are going to play their starters game one of the preseason, versus others like the Bears, who are going to sit their starters, and some teams who don't play their starters really for most of the preseason. So you kind of have the three buckets. There's the we don't play them at all, we play them right away, or we gradually start getting them back in. Now, obviously, the biggest issue with starting them is injury, right? If you injure a great player and one of your top guys in preseason, it's looked at like the coach was an idiot for putting them in there. But my question to you, Will, is what's the right amount? Because when you get injured, usually it's on one play. Well, if they had taken him out of play before, they'd be like, "Oh, that was great." They let him like get used to it, get used to the game, get back into the season. Wow, great coaching job. But because they left him in one play too long, they got hurt because of a freak accident or a rolled ankle, and now all of a sudden they're an idiot. So, what's the right thing for preseason?
I hate to be like the devil's advocate, but I don't really know if there is, which sucks. It's such an easy cop out answer that I'm doing, and I know that I'm doing it, but I have to say it because it's how I feel. I mean, we were talking about it yesterday. I'm such a traditionalist, and because just whenever the whole time I've been growing up, when I was a kid, they would always, you'd always not really watch the first 2 weeks of preseason mainly because it was mainly the guys trying to get a job, trying to make the practice squad, and then you kind of started turning it on around week 3, and into week 4 because you knew that the starters were going to be playing a decent amount of time, and that's kind of when the fan base was, kind of seeing what we were going to be looking like for that year, at least, for the first couple of weeks. And now it's like, man, I don't know. And I think my biggest thing is, you got to look at injury history, and I think this is where it comes down to have a great, training staff. Just because I feel like you gotta, as a head coach and as an organization, go to these guys that are experts in their field and be like, what do we think here? Especially if you have a guy on the fence. Like, obviously, Christian McCaffrey is now not going to play for preseason. He shouldn't. Even if the medical guys were bringing him back, I think Kyle Shanahan would have the wherewithal to be like, let's keep this dude out. We don't need to risk it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense for sure.
But at the same time, like a guy like Tim Patrick, who's been hurt these past 3 years and, just can't seem to get it right, I would maybe give him some time to let him go and, kind of get acclimated again, if you will, just because at the same time, too, if these dudes aren't used to getting hit at full speed, that's not preparing them either. So it's a very double
I
edged
think
sword.
that point you just brought up, I think, is the one that it makes it so hard, right? Like a
Mm-hmm.
Tim Patrick situation, right? Because he's been injured so much, you worry about playing him in the preseason because he's clearly injury prone to an
Mm-hmm.
extent. But then at the same time, I would agree with you in that if he hasn't played, like we got to play him at some
Yeah.
point before season or before, game one of the regular season because I mean, the guy needs to get back to, in game
Mm-hmm.
shape, in game feel, in game speed, all the things that you need. And so that's where it becomes a really tough decision.
100%. And at the end of the day, this is, it's football, man. And that's, hate to make it sound cliche and, you know, light, but that's life sometimes, man. And that's the, everybody thinks they can be an NFL GM, but you can't. And there's a reason why those guys are doing what they do because they make tough decisions. It's like politics in a sense. Not going to bring up any politics now, but the people are there. They're there for a reason. And same thing with the front office. I mean, every day I'm like, I think I could be the GM for the Broncos, and then I'm sure I'd have to make one decision about some dude that's, we don't know where he's going to be, how he's feeling, yada yada yada, hasn't put, whatever. And of course, you make that one decision, you got to kind of ride or die with it. And so, yeah, I mean, do I play CJ Stroud in the preseason? No, you don't need to do that. You saw what he did last year to end the season. He won Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, like you don't. There are certain things.
They're playing him though.
Yeah,
They're playing him.
I know, and that's what's crazy. I'm like, you don't need to do that. What does he? He doesn't need the reps. He's going to get them. He's already got them in big game scenarios. Yes, they're very limited. It's been 1 year, but that to me is ludicrous. Granted, you got Russell Wilson, and Justin Fields in the QB battle or the Broncos QB battle or maybe Darnold and JJ McCarthy, I would maybe give them a couple, not saying they play the whole game, but maybe give them 1, 2 drives apiece, see what's, see if they can't get some chemistry going, get some flow going because at the same time too, like we talked about earlier, it's a win now league and it's up and at the same time it's tough if you're on such a hot seat from the get go. It's pretty hard to play with confidence and make an impact or at least a long lasting impact without at least a little bit of leash thrown your way and some leadway to do your thing. So yeah, do you play guys for a quarter? Maybe not anymore. Maybe especially with how the turf thing is going and all that stuff and the injuries we've seen from the playing surface. Maybe you don't play them as much as you did in the past, like where in the second half it was mainly starters in week 4 getting most of the reps. But maybe you give them 3, 4 drives and just let them go and see what happens. And at the end of the day, too, it's football, it's life, things happen. But yeah, I don't think
I
sitting a guy down all preseason and having him not get hit once is going to keep him healthy during the year, to say the least.
Yeah, I think the right thing to do is build up, and if the Texans want to play C.J. Stroud and their ones for a drive,
That's
even in preseason game one, I have no problem with that. They've been practicing, they've been doing their thing. Like put them out there, get them feeling. How do you feel? How does it feel to be back?
mhm,
That's fine. If they put CJ Stroud out there for like a half or a quarter, even that's aggressive. Now, if they put him out for a quarter in preseason game 3, go ahead, get him going, get him really feeling it, and then the next game, he's in there full time. Obviously, regular season, we're pumping, we're going. Um, I think you can also put some caveats to it, right? Like you tell Stroud before. It's hard to tell an athlete this, I guess, because they're playing by instinct. But you say, hey, listen, if you're about to get sacked or, if the play's breaking down, throw the ball away. Like it's
100%.
it's preseason.
100%.
Don't do something stupid and try to run on your own or take the sack or whatever. The only way you're getting injured is some freak accident where your left tackle just completely blows it and the guy comes behind you and you don't see him. But if it's something you see, throw the ball away, right? Like, I mean, you probably put some caveats to it, but I think the right answer is gradually let them get into it. Not don't play them and not play them too much. It's somewhere in the middle, right? Like
Yeah,
everything, it's a
it's
balance.
such a gray area, and but I also get why they want to play their starters in Houston for a little bit because they got some new pieces. Like that, you want to, like I said, find that chemistry, find that flow. But at the same time, too, yeah, I'm
You want to see Diggs? You want to see Diggs with Stroud, right? I
yeah,
mean,
100%, and that's what people are paying for when they go to that silly little preseason game. But they're really not that silly because again, yeah, these guys got to get acclimated, and there's that.
when and Tank Dell's coming back from injury,
Yeah,
so they got their whole offense, their whole starting, their big starting guys need some get back in that game situation.
100%. And I'm just thinking, I think it's from it was of Dan Campbell. I can't remember if it was from last season or the season before. I think it might have been from Hard Knocks, but it's them in training camp, and it's that whole clip of him, when he gets all emotional about how he does it for his guys, and the lines are all he thinks about, and very heart touching, motivating speech from Dan Campbell. But he in that speech before he starts bawling his eyes out, he does say he's like, listen, I don't want to put on pads every day or when we do have to put on pads. I don't want to put them on, but we have to because if we're not doing that, you're not prepared, then I'm not prepared, and then you guys go out on the field and get hurt. And that is me failing you as a coach. And it's true, man. You gotta be able, you gotta be ready to take hits because that's what's going to happen for 17 games, throughout the season, and that's just again, it's just football. So it's a weird thing where and obviously like that's the thing. Like, is Aaron Rodgers going to play at all this preseason? Like, he
No, I don't. I think they've come out and said
okay.
he's not
That makes
playing the
sense. I mean,
preseason.
you got to keep him healthy as long as you can because you only have him for so long. But I mean, and again, too, I'd be like, I want to see what Rodgers can do. He only had what 4 snaps last year, so granted that was a freak accident, but I mean, we'll
Yeah,
see. Especially
yeah.
since him and Garrett Wilson are jawing at each other on the sideline. So, well, they're projected.
Hey,
Everybody's saying they're going to win 12 games this year. I'm like, man, we'll see. And Brees Hall's the number two running back or the number three guy off the board. I mean, that is
Oh yeah, man. They got high expectations for them Jets over there.
my buddy Matt Lackwell and up in Bozeman will be losing his mind because he's a diehard Jets fan, and he's just, of course, last year he was so fired up, and then of course Rodgers just goes down, and he was like, "This is the most symbolic thing for a Jets fan ever is we finally have a little bit of hope, and it just comes to a crashing halt week one,
Oh yeah.
first quarter of the year." But yeah, we'll see, man.
God.
We'll see.
Well, speaking of fantasy, as you were talking about Mr. Brees Hall, uh, we're going to talk a little bit of fantasy wide receiver fantasy football here. So, just so everybody knows, we did not tell each other our picks. So, I'm interested to see if we have any of the same ones
I bet we
um, in our top five or our sleepers for this season and why here. But let's jump into the top five wide receivers you got on your board here, um, Will, and let's see if we are close.
the top four were pretty easy for me, and I hate it because it's literally like a spitting image of a lot of people's top four. But it's also just a
Hmm.
no-brainer for me, especially looking at average draft position or ADP. And I was checking in on your boy Field Yates's mock drafts he's been doing in his rankings because he's obviously kind of the top dog now that Matthew Berry's went over to NBC, and also Field Yates just is one of the best in the biz. So one, I got Tyreek, man. I mean, his ADP is 1.8. I don't know how you don't take him number one wide receiver off the board after almost getting 2,000 receiving yards last year. Yes, I know he's another year older, and that's a big thing. Father Time is a crazy thing, but I think if anybody's going to outrun Father Time, it's Tyreek Hill. Granted, purely based off of his speed, he's an absolute monster.
Based off the money he needs to pay child support.
Oh my god, dude, yeah. Well, and that too, the fact that they signed him to that 1 year extension for $63 million the other day, I was like, holy cow! I just cannot believe they
What did he get total? It was 3 years, 90. Is that right?
was. Oh, I thought it was only a 1 year extension for some reason.
I think he got 3 years, 90.
Either way, that's crazy.
Um,
That's crazy to me. I don't. You could argue that again with Tyreek Hill, and the same thing with the IU thing, and not paying wide receiver one that big money. But
yeah, he's slated to make 90 mil through 2026 now.
good for him. God damn, that's crazy. But yeah, I mean Tyreek, I think is clear cut, especially with them locking up Tua. Tua obviously loves to find him deep, and everything he can do off the line. We've seen it for years. It'd be pretty hard for me to not take him as my number one wide receiver if he's still on the board. I mean, that's just Tyreek number one, no question.
He's got 65 guaranteed.
Oh, that's what it
So he
was.
makes
Oh, okay,
that 65 guaranteed.
that makes sense. Who's your number one? Tyreek.
No, actually, I have CD Lamb number one.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, I think uh,
He's my two.
we've talked about this in the past. I Tyreek's my number two, so we just switched those. Um, uh, I I think that Dak Prescott is great in the regular season, and I think him and CD just have such a bond that I just like CD Lamb. I had him on my fantasy team last year, and he crushed it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, we know Dak is about to be up for a extension and or new contract, and I think every year I still need to look at the data behind this, but my thoughts are that players play better their contract years,
100%.
and so with him at the helm, and if they get CD Lamb to this deal, then I think he's gonna go off. And for I'll just since Tyreek is my number two, I put him number two because I don't know, man. I have this like feeling. I never want to say anyone's going to get injured, but I have this
Mm-hmm.
feeling that something is going to take him out for like a couple games. And he always, Tyreek always has like a game or two that he goes out every year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like you said, he's another year older. I don't think he's going to put up another season like he did last year. I mean, I know he's chasing it, but dude, 2000 is
Hmm.
that's
No, it's ridiculous.
crazy hard. So, and they just, the Dolphins, um, you know, they're extending other contracts and younger guys, and I uh I don't know. I just so I got him number two.
Well, and the crazy thing too, looking at it, is Tyreek only had 50 more receiving yards than CD Lamb did last year, which is just bonkers because it seemed like Tyreek was just in another world last year. And not saying CeeDee Lamb had a bad season by any means, but like you know what I mean. Like at least from
Yeah.
my perspective, it just seemed like every game Tyreek was breaking another big one, going over 150, yada yada yada. And then you look at the numbers, and it's like, well, CeeDee Lamb is right there. So you could I get your your you flip flopping them and for one for two, like in terms of what I did, because it makes sense. They're at least if you look purely based on paper, they look very comparable. And CD had more catches than Tyreek last year, so
Well, Tyreek missed a game, right? Yeah, he
true.
missed one game against the Jets. Did C? I don't think CD missed a game
I don't
last
think
year, did he?
I don't think so.
I think he played every game. So he had one. Yeah, he played every game. So he had one more game on him. But yeah, I mean, God, the two of them are just unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
So okay, there's one, two. What do we got? What do we got? Three.
I took Jamar at three.
Nice, dude. I did too. I love
Yeah,
that.
I know you're a big Jamar guy. I love Jamar as well. He's a stud. And
I know a lot of people wanted Justin Jefferson at three. Yeah.
he's not even in my top five. And I'll say it right now before we even get to it. He's not even in my top five. It took me a good half hour of figuring out who it's going to be, but I'm stuck between three guys. He's one of them, but he is on the edge of my top five purely because of who's playing quarterback this year. But we'll get to that. But yeah, Jamar, number three. He obviously, we saw what he did last year without Joe Burrow. He is a absolute game changer with even Jake Browning throwing him the football. I think with Joe Burrow coming back this year with that bleach blonde hair and healthy body,
Slim
it's going to
Shiesty.
be it's going to be raps. I think, and in Cincinnati they're going to just cook. And they got T Higgins back. Everybody knows what he can do. He obviously Jamar will get a lot of attention as he normally does, but if you let T Higgins go, they might shave off some guys a little bit, and even so, Jamar's one of a kind. So he's an absolute stud.
Same, exactly the same reason as why I have a number three, and same like Dak for CD Lamb. You know, Chase is looking for a deal, and
Yeah,
I read a lot about whether or not that deal gets done before the season, and a lot of people are saying that deal may not get done until the summer of 2025. So if that's the case, then he's going to put up big
yeah.
numbers. Um, because he wants that money. And the only thing with Chase is he has to stay healthy.
Mhm,
He's had some issues with injury for sure.
mhm.
I had him on my fantasy team when he had all that hips. Oh, God,
Yeah.
killed
Yeah,
me,
me too. I did
killed me
too.
at the end.
Yeah.
um, but if he stays healthy, then I think that's a no brainer. I'm with you.
Well, and
Him at
I'm and,
three.
and like you said, he's up for a contract year. I don't know why any unless they're going to hold out all year, you know what I mean, and they're pulling Ayuk or whatever. If I'm an NFL GM and I know my star player is on a contract year, I don't know why you would ever sign him to a deal to start the year because like he could get hurt, he could not perform, whatever. And like what we've been saying for the past 10 minutes, when dudes are on a contract year, they ball out because they're betting on themselves, and that's the easiest way to get the most out of somebody. And I would be any star player on
I
a
think they do it. I think they do it because no other teams can like interfere. You know what I mean? It's like
100%.
once
Then they
they're
got to
done,
see.
then
I mean,
you're
obviously
over it.
the Bengals front office knows who they have in Jamar Chase, but they could maybe
They're gonna pay him. I mean, they're
they're going
going
to
to
pay
pay
him
him.
for
Yeah.
sure. I'm just saying, like, it's a lot easier as well for a player on the flip side. It's a lot easier for Jamar Chase to be like, you need to pay me X amount of dollars because of what I did this past year, and then obviously if the proof's in the pudding, it's easy to fall back on, and then it's just a win-win either way. But I think it makes the most sense that they would wait till next summer for sure because it's not like they have much to any doubt with him, but just in case something does happen, like you said, the hip stuff, whatever. If he gets another pretty decent injury, misses some time, they that at least for a front office and a business standpoint, they could at least, hate to say it, use that as a negotiating tool if it did happen for sure.
Yeah. Who you got 4 or 5?
Before I got Amon Ra, dog, absolute end zone dog.
Dog.
I love him. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a menace in the end zone. Last week I said get over his receptions for touchdowns. I think he was 9.5, 10, easy all day. Dude only lives in the end zone. That's all he does. You've seen his dad. Dad's an absolute animal. The old power lifter. It's gone right into him, but he's just sleek and fast and just says, "Oh, there's the house. I'm taking it there every time." Amon Ra's an animal. We talked about it earlier with the Lions. They're poised to do another deep run in the playoffs. It's going to be off his back for sure. Him and Jared Goff, and we've seen what Jared Goff can do. He's finally kind of risen to his number one overall draft pick designation that he got when he did get drafted initially by the Rams a couple years ago. But yeah, I love Amon Ra, and I think if he's around and middle of the first round, or even, not even middle of the first round, high first round, you snatch him up as quickly as you can because I think he's only going to go upward from here. So he has had a little injuries for sure. It's tough being that small and getting the ball a lot, and he's a big yak guy, so that definitely enables him to get hit a little bit more in the open field. But I mean, yeah, I could rave about him for another 20 minutes if you wanted me to. I love him on Ron. That's why he's at 4. And I only think he is on his way up. And as well, his ADP's been at 4 and 4.1. So I think most people are kind of seeing that as well.
Who you got at 5?
Well, who's your 4?
My 4 is AJ Brown, dude. I got AJ Brown.
Really?
I think, yeah, I like AJ Brown, dude. AJ
Really?
Brown is a silent killer. I got him on Raw at 5. So JJ is. I was kind of like you. I actually on my sheet I have JJ, and then in parentheses I have Amon Ra at 5.
Okay.
So I didn't know which one I wanted to put, but AJ Brown. The reason I like AJ Brown is because this year I think defenses. He was so good already. And this year, I think defenses have so much more to worry about with Saquon now in the
Sure.
backfield and things as well, that they can't just they have to stack the box some.
Totally.
And that's going to leave AJ Brown some room to work. And Jalen Hurts can throw the ball. They also have to watch Jalen Hurts. So now you have 2 runners really in the backfield that you have to watch. So you have to, make sure you have someone spying on Jalen Hurts, plus, make sure that you are watching Saquon, and then you go outside and you got Devontae Smith out there who can just run the length of the field in no time, and then you got big AJ Brown on the other side. It's going to be hard for defenses to stop the Eagles this year. It just is. And so I like AJ Brown. I like the consistency he brings too. When I look at fantasy players, I like to look at the consistency of the player. I don't like guys who I can't rely on because I inevitably put them in one week and they suck, and then I take them out and then they go off on my bench and it pisses me off. And
Mhm.
I feel like AJ Brown is very much a consistent dude. You know what you're going to get with him for the most part.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so I got him at 4.
I
And now you
had
know my
him.
5 too. So
I had.
I between JJ, same reason. I think JJ's good enough that even kind of like Jamar Chase with last year without Burrow, I think JJ's still going to put up good yards. He's still a phenomenal, unbelievable athlete. But with the new quarterback and what's going on over there in Minnesota, I don't think it's going to be the same as it's been for him. So he's definitely a little bit worrisome for me. I'm trying to. I
I'm in.
wanted to pull up AJ Brown. Here we go.
I'm in the.
I mean, yeah,
I'm in the
dude.
same boat with you
Look,
with Justin Jefferson as well. He's
yeah.
he's
Let
scary.
me read this off. Let me read these yards off to you from last year for AJ Brown. Game 1. I'm just going to read them down from game 1 to game 17. He had 3 off games, I guess, in the entire season. Um, 79, 29, 131, 175, 127, 131, 137, 130, 66, 8, bad game, 37, 114, 94, 56, 80, 53, 9. He tailed off towards the end, which you don't love, but I mean, all of those, some of them had touchdowns with him. So, I mean, it wasn't like he was not giving you points. So, yeah, I like A.J. Brown. I think he's going to do better this year, even. And last year, he went for 14, just over 1,400 yards.
Yeah, no, I like AJ Brown for sure. I only had him at 5. I just think I like the upside of Amon Ra, just his yards after catch and just kind of his knack to get into the end zone a little bit more. But I had AJ Brown last year in the league, and I forgot that little 4 or 5 week spurt there when he just went berserk and went over. He set a record of some sort. I believe it was like the most games with over 100 and I think 100 receiving
Let me
yards
see.
and a touchdown or something like that, and it was just like something ridiculous. But yeah, for I had him split with JJ. I had AJ Brown and JJ split at 5 with also Garrett Wilson, and I'm buying into the hype.
Interesting.
I'm buying into the hype with the old Jets a little bit here.
So this will be interesting when we get into the sleepers.
I
But
know.
yeah,
I hate
interesting.
I hate
Okay.
uh I hate how cocky Aaron Rodgers is after he's done all this ayahuasca and is now thinks he's a medicine man or a Buddhist monk or what have you. But I do know what he can do well, and that is throw the deep ball and just throw accurate on the rope passes. Um, Granted, I did bring up earlier that they were barking at each other on the sideline last week, but I think that's because they both
It
care.
ended in smiles. It ended in
No, yeah,
smiles.
it wasn't anything crazy, but that just shows me that they are both, I think, trending in the right direction in terms of the chemistry together. They both obviously care and they want to do some great things since the Jets have not been able to do that for a very long time, since Joe Namath. So, um, anyway, I like Garrett Wilson purely for the upside and kind of what that Jets offense now has. They have a great offensive line. Rodgers is going to get a lot of protection. Brees Hall, if he does well with that good offensive line, that opens things up for the passing game if they can establish the run well. And we've seen what Garrett Wilson can do. He had that crazy catch last year on prime time with Zach Wilson throwing him the ball. And I just like he's a young wide receiver. He's very good off the line. Great footwork, great release. It's a little bit of a kind of a ballsy pick, but it's I feel good at least with him over Justin Jefferson. Like with everything you said, I don't know who's throwing him the ball in Minnesota. Justin Jefferson, to me at least, is more of a kind of deep threat than a between the hashes, 10 to 15 yard route runner. Like AJ Brown or like Amon Ra or any of the guys we've listed before. I feel like JJ has maybe it's just because he's had Kirk Cousins playing with him his whole career so far, but I feel like JJ is much more of a deep down the field threat than he is a guy, running short little cuts in between the hashes and not anywhere past 10 yards. You know what I mean? So that being said,
Yeah.
of course, I'm going to say all this, and JJ's going to have a career year or something crazy with these two.
No, he won't.
I know he won't, but that's my always like I'm just jinxing myself, or I'm getting someone else poised to go crazy. But yeah,
All
yeah,
right, who's your sleeper number one here?
Joshua Palmer of the
Oh,
Chargers.
the
Chargers
Chargers
have kind
action,
of
yeah.
hauled house. They don't have obviously Keenan Allen anymore. He's a Bear with old Caleb Williams, and Mike Williams is gone as well. I can't. Where did he end up going? I can't. I'm drawing a blank on it.
Mike. So while we're talking about sleepers, Mike Williams is one of my
Oh,
sleepers. He is at he is at the Jets now.
that's right. That's
And
okay.
so that is why I think you can, because he's coming off an ACL
Hmm.
from last year, which is why I have him in my. You'll notice, even though as a guy who doesn't like injuries, two of my three sleepers are coming off of injuries. Um, one of them, Mike Williams, I think he's still a massive end zone threat.
Yep.
Um, and like you said, he's not going to be the number one in New York with the Jets. They got Brees Hall, they got Garrett Wilson. So Mike Williams is kind of off on his own island out there, and I think he has a better quarterback now Not that Justin Herbert's not the man. I mean, he is a great quarterback, but Aaron Rodgers' end zone accuracy is better. It's just better.
Mhm.
And Mike Williams is a massive target. I think you can get him low. I think his ADP is around 160 right now,
Mhm.
um, which, for an end zone target like that, with Aaron Rodgers throwing to him, I think is great. So, yes, that is where Mike Williams is. He is one of my sleepers, but please continue.
No, no, I love that. I didn't
Josh,
think you were gonna
Josh
say Mike Williams for me.
Palmer.
You sold me on Mike Williams. I just wrote it down for my in my draft notes, and he will be a late round pick for sure. I like Josh Palmer for everything that you've just said in terms of Mike Williams, and now he's in New York. And Quentin Johnson is quickly losing his job as one of even their top three wide receivers. I saw the other day that he is right now, at least after I think it was after last Friday, he was sitting at like wide receiver 4, which is outrageous given the hype that he had coming out of TCU. And he was a great wide receiver at TCU, brought him to the national championship, all that jazz. But now, obviously, I don't know what's going on. Confidence, maybe he's got sweaty hands. I don't know, but he can't catch a football to save his life, and it's
Sweaty
a
hands.
bummer to see. But I like Josh Palmer. He had 38 receptions last year, almost 600 yards. He only had 2 TDs, but the big thing for me is his average of catch was 15.3 yards. So he's great off the yak. Again, goes crazy. I hate saying yak because it sounds like you're throwing up, but that's what it is. Yards after catch. If you don't know, obviously you know for the listeners. But anyway, his yak's crazy, and he's kind of got the green light. He's got really no one there giving him a lot of problems in terms of fighting for that wide receiver 1 spot. Now, granted, if he does get even wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 reps and kind of runs with that this season, we will. I'm curious to see what he can do in a bigger role now. And it's kind of his job to lose. Granted, he does have Justin Herbert back, and hopefully he can stay healthy. Obviously, he's dealing with some plantar fascia right now, but from everything that I've seen, it's not a big deal with Herbert. But it is something to keep in mind because he's kind of struggled to stay healthy these past couple of seasons so far. But yeah, I like Josh Palmer. I think he's got a tremendous amount of upside. If you can get him late, I think he'd be a good bench stash and kind of just monitor him and maybe throw him in the flex. If you got a guy on a bye week or some injuries persist early in the season. But yeah, I like Josh Palmer a lot to have a lot of upside and really kind of eat with a wide open receiving room that is now in LA.
Yeah. All right. Josh Palmer. Well, Jim Harbaugh, as he fights his Michigan scandal, he'll be looking to Josh Palmer to catch some passes, and I like it, Willie P. I like that as a sleeper. My number 2, going back to again one of your guys in your top 5. My number 2 is actually Jamison Williams for Detroit. So
Sure.
you talked about Amon Ra being the number 1, obviously over there. Detroit is poised again to do well this season, I think, and I think Jamison Williams, who didn't have a great season last year, not he had 354 yards. His target share was only 9.8%, and he averaged about just under 7 fantasy points a game. It's 1.96 fantasy points per target. I think he's going to get more of the target share this year.
Hmm.
Josh Reynolds is gone.
Hmm.
Khalif Raymond is there. So I think Jamison Williams moves up to their number 2. I think as good as Amon Ra is, that is going to draw
Hmm.
some attention to him, which should leave Jamison Williams a little bit more open. Um, so I think he is a great sleeper for what you'll be able to get him at. I think he's definitely going to do better than last season. Even if he doesn't get 1,000 yards, I think that he'll be a good pickup for, as you mentioned, either a flex position or a wide receiver number 2 if needed. If you get some injuries on your team, things like that. I think he's a good option to throw in there. So Jameson Williams is my second
I
sleeper.
like that a lot. I think yeah, we've talked about it a lot earlier in the show, but I think the Lions are going to continue to build on the success that they've had. As long as Dan Campbell kind of quits being such a big gambler, just play the script, Dan. Come on, like just like I love I love the aggressive
Go for it on 4.
attitude, but like, at the same time, read the room, Dan. You know, I have a hard time believing that he isn't good at reading the room when he's in social situations, but at least the way he acts on the football field sometimes, I feel like he's the guy that comes into the party and just doesn't know anybody and starts housing beers too early, and then he's oversharing quickly, But also, he's a huge dude, so it might take him a whole 30 rack to feel a buzz. You never know.
There you go.
But going into that, Curtis Samuel is my second sleeper on the Bills. We kind of saw what he did with the Commanders. He had some big fantasy relevance these past couple of years, especially because they let him run the ball a little bit. He was kind of like a poor man's Debo Samuel. I don't know if they're going to emulate that into the with the Bills. Um, but I think his average was 9.9 after the catch, which I think is solid. 62 catches last year for 613 and 4 tuds. Again, the Bills don't have Gabe Davis anymore. They don't have Stephon Diggs. They obviously drafted Keon Coleman, who they're expecting a lot from. And I think Keon Coleman could be a difference maker for them, but at the same time, he's a rookie wideout, and we'll see. So I like the versatility of Curtis Samuel, and just the overall speed that he brings to that team. And we'll see, kind of what happens this year. I think Dalton Kincaid will be kind of the number one option for Josh Allen, especially since he's been there already. And I think he has a lot of tremendous upside. And could be a top 3 tight end to end the year if he can stay healthy. But I think Curtis Samuel's a guy definitely, again, to keep your eye on, maybe stash him late. Maybe throw him in a couple, 2-3 weeks if you need something. And again, these are all sleepers, so I'm not saying you'll get him early and play him every week, but I think he could definitely be a valuable addition, especially in the red zone. He can run a nice little cut, little drag route for sure. And Josh Allen loves to extend plays, and I think he'll be a perfect fit for the Bills in that sense.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think, we saw what he did at the Commanders with their rotating room of QBs. So
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
have someone like Josh Allen under center throwing to him, I think he'll only go up. He'll only benefit from that. So yeah, dude, that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a good grab if you have the option, if he's still on the board.
Hmm.
My last sleeper is Christian Watson.
No way.
We all know Christian. Is that who you have?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, let's go. So, this is great. And reminder, we did not
No,
talk
we did
about
not.
these before.
That's
So I
crazy.
love that. I
God
love
damn
that.
it.
That's excellent. So, Christian Watson, if we all remember, uh, just absolutely wrecked by hamstring injuries last year. He missed
Yeah.
8 games.
Yeah.
But prior, he is a big play guy. He can stretch the field. He was getting 11.3 fantasy points per game. He had 5 receiving touchdowns last year. Um, I read that he went to Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health and did a bunch of testing with them and found the asymmetries in his legs and strength. And so he worked on making his lower body more symmetrical to fix his hamstring issues this offseason. And that is, so that is a real thing. Um, the the kinematic chain that goes through your body basically says everything is connected through just muscles and tendons and ligaments and you name it, and asymmetries in side to side in the body lead to injury. It's a lot of why when you go to the doctor, if you think you tore your ACL, they're going to test both legs. So they always go over to the non-injured one first and they do the Lockman's test, and everyone says, "Oh, it's not that leg." And then we proceed to say, "I know. I have to test this side to understand how your body, because normally it's symmetrical, if you have not had an injury on that side, some people have more lax ligaments, some have tighter ligaments. So they always test both sides because of symmetry. So if he truly did fix that symmetry, he could potentially reduce his chance at a hamstring injury this season. So he has had the foresight to go and fix that. And so that is why I put him on my sleeper list, because usually I stay very far away from guys who have hamstring injuries,
Mhm.
aka Julio Jones at the end of his career, because hamstrings put receivers down for weeks at a time, and we know that, and they just re-injure them all the time. But if he truly fixed that, I think that he is has massive upside for where
100%.
you could probably get him because he missed 8 games last season. So people are worried about him. They're not going to want to touch him for a while. So I think you can get him at a very good draft position this year.
100%. And I had him last year, and he made me so upset for so long because, like you said, he missed 8 games. He'd come back. I was like, thank God, I finally have Christian Watson back. I have my wide receiver too. The upside's there. We know what he can do. He's a big man, big body. He can go up and grab that thing, get in the end zone, and then he'd just get hurt again. And I was like, God, dude, I just like, but I'm everything with you. That's why he's my third, or yeah, that's why he's my third. And everything you said, we don't need to rehash everything you just said. But yes, I have a very good feeling about him. Jordan Love just got paid. He's got to prove everybody why he got that bag. And I think the Packers have definitely missed him a lot last year, and now that he's going to be coming back, I think he's going to be finding the end zone a lot for sure.
Yeah, Christian Watson. You heard it here. Christian Watson. He's the pick.
He's the pick.
All right. Well, as we come to the end, because I know we are almost out of time here, we got our prop bets, our NFL futures, our Willie P putting that cash in your pocket, bringing it home. Go on some vacations, do something with it.
Something.
Uh,
I had a Super Bowl ticket.
Willie P, start us off. What are the bets we should be watching? We should be placing the money on.
I know a lot of people have been hammering Derrick Henry over touchdown props. We talked about it last week. It was 9.5 until the word got out of the trend of him doing that for the past 6 years or whatever that number was, and now it's 10.5. I'm not here to talk to you about that. I'm here to talk to you about the other running back in that offense in Lamar Jackson. And his rushing prop for the season is 725.5. That's outrageous, given that he almost got 100 more than that last year without the offensive line that they had. Granted, their offensive line was not much worse than what they had last year. It's not much better. It has gotten better. Anyway, top 5 offensive line in the league. I think a lot of people will be worrying about Derrick Henry, but we all know what Lamar Jackson can do. He's the dual threat quarterback of dual threat quarterbacks. And he loves to extend plays. I think Vegas having him at 725.5 seems a little low to me. If it was closer to 775, 800, I would not be telling you to do this, but I feel good about him going over 725. It's minus 112 right now, so Vegas is kind of on the same end of that spectrum as well. It's kind of it's one or the other. But I think Lamar has no problem going over that again. He's proven it time and time again that he loves to run the ball. That's what made his name at Louisville. Obviously, that's been a couple of years since that, but I like him a lot to go over 700.
L1C4.
Yeah.
Louisville first, cards forever.
Yeah. And to piggyback off that, I like Josh Allen to go over 500.5 rushing yards as well this year. Not for the same reason, but he's going to have to extend plays if the Bills are going to be successful. He literally has to do that. So, and he is also a massive freight train when he gets those legs turning in the open field. He had 524 last year, so I don't feel as good about it. It is it's close to even again. I think it was like minus 117 the last time I saw it. But I like Josh Allen to go over 500 purely based off the fact that he is going to have to show everybody why everybody considers him a top 5 quarterback in the league. And obviously the main reason for that is because of his arm, but he is also very good at extending plays, and I think he's going to have to with the younger wide receiver core that he has that is also very much less proven, and he doesn't have a safety valve in Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs anymore. So he's going to have to make plays and extend them in order to get the job done, I think, this year in a tough AFC East nonetheless. My next one is Trevor Lawrence over 3,775.5 passing yards. It's minus 112.
Better prove why he's getting paid.
Exactly. Words right out of my mouth. He had over 4,000 in 2023. and now he has that huge, huge contract. And I think everybody in Jacksonville is ready to see where that money's going to go, and it better go right back into their pockets for winning games because he's going to have to do it. They obviously, have new guys and Gabe Davis there, which I think really helps. They also have Christian Kirk still, who had a great year last year for them. I like Christian Kirk a lot, and they also have Brian Thomas Jr.
I love Christian Kirk for fantasy, by the way.
Yeah,
I had him last
and
year,
that's why
absolutely
again, and that's
killed
why
it.
I'm saying I think Trevor Lawrence is going to go over this 3,775. I think he has to. You know, talk about contract years and getting paid. You're right after your contract year, and it's time for you to show why they paid you all that money. And I believe in Trevor Lawrence. I have no gripe with him, but he definitely has significantly underperformed in his first couple of years in the NFL, and especially for being the quarterback that has been the closest compared to Peyton Manning, and a generational quarterback, if you will, is what they were all saying out of Clemson. And he has definitely not shown that, at least in his first couple of years in the league. So I'm purely basing it going off a vibe check with Trevor Lawrence, see if he can actually live up to the billing and live up to that contract. And Vegas kind of feels the same way. I mean, it's minus 112, so they think it's kind of a crapshoot. I like to be an optimist and believe in people. So I'm believing in Trevor Lawrence. So I don't feel 100. It's definitely a little more risky for me. And when we like to categorize it, whether it's frisky or risky, I would say Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen rushing yard bets are a little more frisky for me. I feel a lot better about those than I do about Trevor Lawrence going over his passing prop for the year. But I am also, like I said, an optimist, and I believe he can do it. And there's a reason why the Jags shelled out all that money. So I think this is the year Trevor Lawrence finally gets over the hump and shows everybody why he was taken when he was, and all the superlatives that he was given. And finally, this one is definitely a risky. It's I feel like I'm bought into the hype train with this, but I saw the handicap for it and I just felt too good about it. It's Marvin Harrison to have the most rookie receiving yards of the season at plus 150. He's a clear favorite. Um, the
I
thing
still
that
think Willie Neighbors is gonna be the guy, dude.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, there you go. Maybe you should take. Everybody else takes my bets. Let's have Tyler list off some bets here. I'd love to see. Not say it's a competition, but like, man, dude. Of course, Malik Neighbors is gonna do it, and we're gonna have to clip this from right before preseason. It'd be a great clip, but I just
In
I
in no, in your defense, I was hoping that the Pat and I've said this in the past, I was hoping the Pats took Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors and not Drake May. No offense if anyone from the Patriots is watching this. I still love the Patriots.
yeah
I just don't know how a rookie QB is if he's going to do any better than Jacoby Brissett
yeah
week 1, and I feel like getting a Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors would have been very strong to set us up for
100%.
success in the future. But either one of those guys. So to hear you say Marvin Harrison going off, it's going to piss me off when he does, and we have the chance to
Well,
take
we'll
him.
see, man. And again, it's kind of the same thing with this Trevor Lawrence pass prop. I'm I believe in Kyler Murray. I think he can be a game changing quarterback, and he obviously hasn't had the best health luck in the past 2 seasons. But I think it's Kyler Murray's kind of on the hot seat as the not starter, but he's got a lot of expectations in Arizona, and he hasn't really been meeting them as much. And obviously, that whole thing with Cliff Kingsbury didn't help, or they had a great start, and then now or I don't even know where he is now, but he went to Thailand for all that time after not getting a contract. But either way, I'm betting mainly not even on Marvin Harrison because we know what he can do, and he's an absolute stud. I'm mainly betting on Kyler Murray and him getting him the ball and playing a full healthy season. And plus 150 just feels like a good number for me. The rest of them were a lot higher. They were at least like plus 300 or more. And I was just looking at those and I was like, oh man, that's a long shot. But it's the whole beauty about futures, man. They're all a long shot at the end of the day. So
That's right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the frisky and the risky bets from the man himself, Willie P. Uh, Before we go, a little update. Practice was just called at in Atlanta as Rondell Moore had to be loaded onto a cart with an air cast on his right leg. So
I don't know.
that is not what you want to see from one of their wide receivers, which does mean though that if you are fantasy guy, Drake London and
Yeah.
uh, is a even more of a target is going to get even more of a target share now. Um, but that's the last thing that should be on anyone's mind, probably. As Rondell Moore he was a big piece in Arizona. You never want to see anyone go down with a bad leg injury like that. So we wish him the best. Also, Josh Downs has an ankle injury that just came through as well in practice. And apparently he's been pretty impressive in camp thus far. And for Willie P, your Raiders, Antonio Pierce said Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew will each play a quarter in the preseason opener against Minnesota. So we will see who truly should be under center when the season
Got
starts.
to cash that future. Raiders got to get second. Come
Yeah,
on.
we will
Gotta
see.
just
We will see how they
shock the
do.
world, baby. Raider Nation. And I'm saying that as a Broncos fan. It's making me sick to my stomach. Oh, man.
He really wants that future bet. So we'll give you the pass this time as a Denver fan, but we will see you all back here next week. We look forward to it. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter for more news, information, health scores, and health injury updates. And check out thepredictors.com for all of that, plus articles. And the new pages are up for player comparison pages, as well as the player pages. If all your data and info needs for building your fantasy team and picking who to play week in and week out this season. Meet us back here next week for another episode of the Frisky Risky podcast.
Thank you for watching.